Chapter 81 Owl Song. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hearing Geno's question, even Bruce Wayne, known for his cool composure, showed a flicker of surprise. He hadn't expected such a question right off the bat. How should he answer? From an economic angle? Or a more philosophical one? Bruce studied Geno's blue eyes, sensing there was more to the question than met the eye. Mr. Wayne. Geno's voice snapped Bruce back to the present, reacting quickly. As expected, Bruce came up with a response within seconds. He decided to give an answer that fit his public persona. Bruce smiled, casually draped his arms around the two women beside him, and raised an eyebrow playfully at Geno. To me, Gotham is paradise. Despite the smile, a pang of sadness hit Bruce. For the real Bruce Wayne, Gotham was a source of constant heartbreak. His parents were buried here, and his life's mission was to somehow save this seemingly hopeless city. Negative emotions from Bruce Wayne plus 50. Having scored a wave of negative points from Bruce, Geno didn't press the matter. He smiled and raised his champagne glass. To Gotham. Bruce mirrored the gesture. To Gotham. As the glasses clinked, a young, beautiful redhead appeared on the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, she announced into the microphone, welcome to Mr. Maroney's charity banquet. Tonight, we'll be holding an auction, with all proceeds going to support the Gotham orphanage. Beside Geno, Thomas leaned in and whispered, the guy at the front table is Mayor Carlos, with his boyfriend next to him. And next to them is Maroni, one of Gotham's biggest crime bosses. Thanks to Thomas's introductions, Geno was quickly putting names to faces. Every one of these people was either filthy rich or politically connected. Geno knew that behind those smiles were some pretty dirty secrets. His eyes scanned the room. The opulent hall was packed. Everyone was decked out in suits and ties, dripping in wealth. Expensive watches and jewelry glittered on every wrist. These were the bloodsuckers of Gotham, corrupt officials colluding with the mob, bribing judges and lawyers. Together they greedily leached off the city's wealth. To put it bluntly, if someone tossed a couple of grenades in here, the aftermath would be catastrophic. Gotham might even descend into anarchy. I'm going to hit the restroom, Geno said, standing up and nodding politely. As Geno's seat emptied, Bruce glanced at Thomas and said casually, your nephew seems like a sharp kid. Where's he going to college? If you want to know someone, start with the people closest to him. Bruce thought. Yeah, well, his father's a real piece of work, a nutcase. Thomas clearly wasn't a fan of Lionel. He scoffed, Geno should be in Metropolis getting the best education, but his dad dragged him to this dead-end town. Thomas rubbed his chin, about to continue, but... Bang! That it sounded like a blown fuse or a tripped circuit. The lights flickered, and the brightly lit hall plunged into darkness. What happened? Why the power outage? A murmur of confusion rippled through the crowd. The event organizers quickly stepped forward, trying to calm everyone down. Amidst the commotion, Bruce finished the last bite of steak on his fork. In the darkness, his blue eyes narrowed with concern. Thump! The sound of a heavy object hitting the floor echoed through the hall. People fumbled for their phones, using the screens to cut through the darkness. Their eyes were drawn to the center of the banquet hall. The faint light revealed the scene. In the dim light, a man in a suit lay sprawled on the cold marble floor, his neck twisted at an unnatural angle, his face frozen in a grotesque expression, blood trickling from his mouth and nose. People looked up at the shattered glass in the dome above. It appeared the body had been dropped from above. The dead man's eyes were wide with surprise, as if he hadn't seen his own death coming. Oh, God! Gasping, a woman covered her mouth. Someone recognized the deceased, their voice barely a whisper. It's Maroni. A wave of shock went through the crowd. The city's elite were visibly shaken. A major crime boss like Maroni, dead at a charity banquet? This upscale dinner had taken a deadly turn, but the burning question on everyone's mind was, who did it? Whispers and speculations filled the room. Then, heavy, rhythmic breathing cut through the tension. Whoosh, whoosh. The sound was measured, deliberate. Someone instinctively turned their phone's light toward a dark corner. What is that? A tall, black figure stood cloaked in shadows. He wore jet-black armor and a gold-plated hood, but his most striking feature was a pair of orange goggles that glowed eerily in the dim light. the men and women in the banquet hall gasped as they looked at this figure. The tall, dark figure swept his gaze across the crowd, as if memorizing their faces. "Hey! Who are you?" The banquet security guards surged forward to apprehend the uninvited guest, but Maroni's goons were faster. 2 of them pulled pistols from their pockets and opened fire. Bang! 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 As the bullets flew, the figure dropped and rolled. Avoiding the attack, he leaped over tables and ducked behind pillars until the 2 thugs' pistols were empty. Thwip! The masked man flicked his wrist, and several throwing knives flashed through the air, burying themselves in the thugs' necks. The speed of the knives turned them into lethal weapons, severing arteries and veins. Gah! The 2 men clutched at their necks, blood spurting between their fingers. The blood made tonight's banquet all the more gruesome. His voice a raspy growl, the mysterious man spoke. "Beware the Court of Owls, they're watching you from above." The assassin recited a chilling nursery rhyme familiar to longtime Gotham residents. Then, he tossed 2 small bags onto the ground. Bang! Thick smoke billowed up, obscuring their vision, the acrid smell making people cough and gag. Bruce stared into the smoke-filled air. When the smoke cleared, the assassin was gone. Bruce frowned, looking around, wondering how the hell he had escaped. Chapter 82 Batman and Gordon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Maroni's dead. He and his 2 younger brothers were killed at that fancy banquet. Click, star. The power surged back on, and the lights blazed again, illuminating the hall. People scrambled to get out of there, having just witnessed 3 deaths. These rich and powerful types weren't about to stick around in such a dangerous place. What happened? Gino grabbed a napkin, wiped his hands, and sat back down. The young man looked calm. Steak's a little overdone, he remarked, spearing a piece and popping it into his mouth. Guess the chef's having an off night. Thomas ignored him, rushing to the 2 men who'd been stabbed in the neck. As a doctor, his instinct was to save lives, but their lifeless eyes told him it was too late. "Oh my God, Bruce, let's get out of here." Bruce's dates panicked, grabbed their purses, and urged him to leave. Chaos reigned. When people are in danger, their first reaction is to run, but Bruce shook his head, signaling the women to go ahead while he kept his eyes on Gino. The handsome young man was still impeccably dressed in his black suit and tie. Gino glanced at the bodies in the distance, feigning surprise. Someone died. The performance was so convincing that Bruce couldn't tell if Gino was involved. "Yeah," Bruce said, nodding. "Gangster Maroni's dead." "Well, maybe this assassin did us all a favor," Gino said with a hint of glee. "I heard he was a real piece of work, running all sorts of shady deals." "Do you think he deserved it, Mr. Bruce?" Gino put down his fork and rested his chin on his hand. "If we just assassinated every criminal, would Gotham go back to normal? Could Gotham be fixed by killing all the bad guys?" Bruce almost pictured a Gotham without crime, but the sound of sirens broke his train of thought. Unlike the slow response times in the slums, the Gotham PD showed impressive speed when dealing with the elite. James Gordon, 29, a Navy Special Forces veteran, had joined the GCPD a week earlier. Gordon had a pregnant wife, which meant he needed a steady job to support his family. Society isn't kind, it's cold and harsh. If Gordon were willing to become a dirty cop, his life would be a whole lot easier, but Gordon was an anomaly within the Gotham police force. He didn't take bribes, and he didn't attend the fun gatherings with his colleagues. Naturally, his peers and superiors shunned such an unsociable guy, so, when this bizarre murder happened, his boss sent the unlucky Gordon to handle it. "Lighter, Fran, seal off the scene. Frank, get someone to take notes and follow me." Gordon rubbed his temples. He'd been having a rough time lately. The exclusion and pressure from his superiors and colleagues were wearing him down. Gordon walked into the hall, now mostly empty. His eyes swept across the 3 bodies. Definitely a homicide. He took a deep breath. Soon, the officer taking notes was reporting the situation. Gordon frowned as he listened. The assassin appeared out of nowhere, killed Maroni, and vanished. It sounded like something out of a sci-fi novel. "Fine, get the bodies to the morgue." Early morning, Gordon watched the medical examiner remove a knife from the victim's throat after the autopsy. The silver throwing knife was engraved with an owl. Lost in thought, he heard a strange rustling behind him. Who's there? Gordon tensed and whirled around. Under the dim light, a black shadow resembling a giant bat stood silently in the corner. A dark cloak billowed, and combined with the black armor, the figure looked mysterious and unsettling. Beneath the pointed-eared mask, a pair of cold eyes stared back. Gordon quietly gripped the pistol on his hip. If the guy made a move, he'd shoot without hesitation. Who breaks into a morgue dressed like that? Answer, a nutcase. Relax, Gordon heard the costumed weirdo say. I'm here to help. Ignoring Gordon's movement, Batman walked to the body and picked up the murder weapon. His gaze lingered on the owl insignia. Recalling rumors about the Wayne family, Batman made some educated guesses. He dropped the knife and turned to leave. Wait. You can't just show up and leave like that. Gordon pulled out his pistol. After a moment's hesitation, he shouted, I'm going to have to suspect you're involved in the murder. Get down on your knees and put your hands on your head. Batman didn't stop. Under Gordon's gaze, he pushed open the window and jumped. Jesus, Gordon gasped. It was the 5th floor. He rushed to the window, hoping to save the guy, but when Gordon looked down, he saw the man in costume spreading his black cloak under the neon lights. The night wind howled, whipping the cloak into a frenzy. The figure resembled a bat with outstretched wings soaring across the night-shrouded city, disappearing from Gordon's sight. Oh my God! Gordon rubbed his eyes. He felt like he was going crazy. Gotham's sewers, filthy sewage flowed through the underground channels, filled with garbage and animal corpses. Zoom in to a dark, round conference table. Around it sat a group of men and women wearing white masks and expensive clothes. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume. Everyone, the guy at the head of the table said, rapping his knuckles. Someone impersonated us in the Maroni case tonight. The candlelight flickered, and the shadows danced. Impersonating the Court of Owls? Someone said. He'll pay. A group of people hid their faces behind masks, discussing the matter with increasing urgency. He'll expose us. He will pay dearly. They whispered. Activate our connections. Investigate his background. Then. Release the talons. Chapter 83 The Curtain Rises. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Keno threw the canvas bag down. He stripped off his suit, revealing a ripped physique. Ugh. The zipper gave way, spilling out a clawed assassin costume. Keno stared at the costume sprawled on the floor, a wave of annoyance washing over him. Why do superheroes have to wear these ridiculous uniforms? It's like asking to be tortured. Seriously, fighting in this thing was bad enough without the breathing problems, but the tight fit restricted his movements. One wrong move and he'd rip the seams, leading to an embarrassing situation, not to mention the potential disaster if he had, issues. He kicked the bag under the bed and sprawled out, clutching a chunk of green kryptonite, absorbing its weird energy. He replayed the night's events in his head, playing Talon, assassinating Maroni right in front of Gotham's elite. If he was right, everyone who saw him transform at that meeting had some connection to the Court of Owls, but Keno wasn't sweating it. He was looking forward to flushing those rats out of the shadows. Dawn broke, the red light district was already buzzing. Marco was a mid-level gang leader in Gotham. Let's be real, in a city as cutthroat as Gotham, he wouldn't have held his position for long on his own, but he had some mysterious backers who kept him afloat. In return, he helped them investigate odd occurrences. Like tonight's hit on Maroni by some guy in a crazy getup. Maroni's death was a major blow to the underworld. His empire was up for grabs, and every power player was looking to carve out a piece. Marco pushed open the door to a tailor shop. Welcome to Olivier's tailor shop. What can I do for you? The guy behind the counter was an old dude, maybe in his 60s, pencil behind his ear, tape measure around his wrist, looked like your typical tailor. Marco's eyes flickered. He gave the old man a sly smile. You think you could make something like this? He pulled a sketch from his pocket, a drawing of the Talon costume. The old tailor squinted, studying the design. That's funny. A few days ago, a kid came in wanting the same thing. Marco's breath caught in his throat. He couldn't believe his luck, a lead on his first try. You wouldn't happen to know his name, would you? Marco asked, trying to keep his cool. My memory ain't what it used to be, the tailor drawled, his eyes gleaming with a hint of greed. He totally remembered the kid. Mask or no mask, he'd left his name. Marco smirked. He'd been playing both sides of the law long enough to know what this guy wanted. Marco pulled a wad of cash from his pocket, held together with a rubber band, and tossed it on the counter. The tailor snatched up the bills, counted them, and gave a satisfied nod. He ducked behind the counter, emerging with a small slip of paper. The kid called himself Keno Luthor, said he lived at Elliott Manor. Perfect. Marco pocketed the note, then, he raised his left hand. A black revolver appeared in his grip. Bang! The bullet ripped through the old man's skull. A greedy smile was still plastered on his face when he went down. Marco blew the smoke from the barrel, snatched the cash back from the tailor's hand, tipped his hat in a mock salute, and walked out. Back in the familiar round-table chamber, dignitaries in white owl masks sat in a circle. Our faithful hounds have brought us news, the head honcho said slowly. The man who disrupted the court that night has been identified as Lauren Elliott's grandson, Keno Luthor, from Metropolis. A wave of snickers rippled through the room at the mention of the Elliott name. That loser? Did he put his troubled grandson up to this, seeking revenge? The man's lost it. Is the Luthor family involved? A dragon can't muscle in on local turf. If the Luthors stick their claws in, we'll clip them. The whispers died down. All right, gentlemen and ladies, the leader said, rapping on the table. The silence returned. We will proceed as discussed, the leader continued. Unleash the claws to claim their due. The Elliott name is ancient. It's time they exited Gotham's stage. Gotham's sky was perpetually gray, no matter the time of day. The next morning, Keno was jarred awake by the sound of rain. Great, Keno mumbled, rubbing his eyes and looking out the window. Rain lashed down from the gray sky, heavy raindrops smacked against the glass. He got dressed and headed downstairs, finding Dr. Harleen sorting through patient files. Dr. Harleen, Keno said, glancing at the downpour. Morning. Harleen gave a shy smile. Good morning, Mr. Keno. Keno smiled back, but didn't engage the shy psychiatrist. He stood by the window, staring out. Harleen found herself drawn to him, curious. Mr. Keno, what are you looking at? What am I looking at? Geno's lips curled into a slight smile. He closed his eyes, a faint whisper escaping his lips. Miss Harleen, can't you hear it? The psychiatrist was taken aback, straining to hear. Hear what? Keno didn't answer, focusing on his hearing. He could hear movement outside the manor. The rain pounded the clothes. There was something else, a group of people, moving silently toward the manor. Keno opened his eyes, his gaze suddenly sharp and intense. Through the glass and the iron gate, he saw a group of figures in black uniforms with owl-eyed masks, tall and muscular, each equipped with throwing knives strapped to their chests and bayonet claws jutting from their knuckles. Bird-like assassins on a rainy night, exuding cold menace. Keno slowly opened the manor door. He stepped out, letting the rain soak him. The rain in Gotham had a chemical tang. Keno inhaled deeply. He watched the assassins leap over the 8-foot fence, landing silently on the wet ground. Their orange eye lenses glowed in the rain. Keno grinned, spreading his arms wide. Anyone want to leave before this gets started? Chapter 84. Kill his whole family. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Whoa! Rain poured from the sky, splattering on Geno's cheeks and trickling down his chin. The talons silently raised their hands, heads tilted like real owls, and made a soft coo sound. Inside the manor, Dr. Harleen was frozen in place, equally terrified by the bizarre scene. Through the downpour, the two sides faced each other. A pack of assassins with razor-sharp claws surrounded Keno. There were so many of them, any one of them could hack him to pieces. Boom! Thunder rumbled, followed by a lightning strike that split the night, like a starting gun. Who? The Talon assassins surged forward. They moved with a practiced, coordinated efficiency. Clang! The assassins raised their right hands, encased in iron gauntlets. Then, coo! They emitted owl-like sounds, and the sharp blades in their hands flashed toward Keno from all directions. Oh my God! Harleen's eyes widened. She fumbled in her pocket for her cell phone, ready to call the cops. The blades sliced through the rain, leaving shimmering trails as they sped toward Gino. Clang! A sound like metal grinding against metal echoed across the rainy night. Harleen rubbed her eyes. She could have sworn she saw sparks fly from Gino's body as the assassin's claws struck him. The assassins, failing to kill him outright, leaped back, creating distance to hurl throwing knives at Gino. The knives whistled through the rain, impacting the man of steel. Littering makes you a bad Gothamite. The rain intensified, and Gino decided he'd had enough of standing in it. It was cool, sure, but being soaked wasn't his thing. Gino barely moved, and in a flash, his hands were full of the thrown knives. Harleen's disbelief grew. The knives seemed to materialize in Gino's hands like magic. He held the blades casually, seemingly unfazed by their sharpness. The assassins appeared momentarily stunned, but they quickly recovered, drawing their samurai swords and launching a second wave of attack. Let's see who goes down first. Gino watched the swarm closing in. He plucked a throwing knife from his hand, aiming it at the closest assassin. Who? Gino hurled the knife. The next moment. Bang! Like a torpedo detonating in the water, the knife exploded through the rain, piercing the assassin's head with terrifying force. Gino had turned the throwing knife into a Barrett bullet, blasting the Talon's head into a gruesome mist. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Gino kept throwing, aiming and flicking his wrist, each knife becoming a deadly projectile that shattered the assassins' skulls. Some assassins raised their swords to block, but the knives shattered the blades on impact, turning into a shower of sharp metal fragments that peppered their faces. Inside the manor, as the number of knives in Gino's hand dwindled, the assassins fell one by one. It was a one-sided slaughter. This group of Talons had no idea what they were up against. Inside the house, brains and raindrops splattered on the grass. Harleen witnessed the bloody carnage firsthand. She felt she should be terrified, but a strange new feeling began to bloom in the girl's heart. She rubbed her legs, her breathing quickening, as she stared at the imposing figure in the night. Ah! Harleen let out a soft moan, as if another personality inside her was urging her to join him. He actually did it. An old voice broke through Harleen's thoughts. The gray-haired Lauren looked like he'd seen a ghost. He gazed at the headless corpses on the ground. The old man knew how deadly these Talon assassins were. Emotionless weapons, martial arts masters, the Court of Owl's most prized asset. And now, they lay dead at Elliott Manor. Lauren breathed heavily, wanting to burst out the door and urge Gino to hurry to the Court of Owl's vault and seize their treasures. He hadn't believed the young man could actually pull it off. Gino didn't notice or care about the emotions stirring inside the house. He approached one of the dead Talons, whose face was riddled with steel fragments. He reached down and ripped off the man's mask, revealing a pale, bloated face. The man looked like he'd ingested too much of some mysterious drug. His blood vessels glowed purple, as if he'd been poisoned. The Court of Owl's methods for training Talon assassins were clearly both shady and brutal, but given who Keno was dealing with, it came as no surprise. For these old Gotham families, human life was the cheapest commodity. Swish, swish. Lauren, holding an umbrella, shuffled toward Gino. Rain hammered the umbrella. Lauren looked up at Gino's back. What are you going to do now? Gino tilted his head back, staring at the rain-soaked sky, holding his hand out to feel the falling drops. Lauren heard Gino's voice. Write down the names of the ones you know. Give me a list. The Court of Owls should change its name too. I understand. Lauren nodded. He didn't know where they met, but he knew plenty of names. After witnessing the young man's power, Lauren decided to give Gino everything he knew. Lauren, with the help of the approaching steward, headed back to the manor. Gino took out his phone and texted Talia from his contacts. Be at Gotham's Elliott Manor at 9 tomorrow morning. Bring your people. Seconds after the message was sent, Gino received a reply confirming receipt and asking how many members of the League of Assassins would be needed. Keno typed back, as many as you want. He was a good guy. There were easily dozens of members of the Owl Council, including their families and friends. That's hundreds of people. Killing all of them and taking their wealth was going to take some effort. After all, Mr. Gino was a kind soul and didn't want to see blood. He would put on a wave of black gloves to do these dirty things, and at the same time mix the water, so that Mr. Bruce Wayne could be busy for a while. Gino smiled faintly. I can't wait to see the expressions on those owl members' faces when they find out all their talons are dead. It's going to be great. Chapter 85 When the extermination of the family is in progress. You are listening at novelfull.audio. To be honest, my dad's always hated this city. He thinks Gotham's got 80% of the world's bad guys. Calls it a cesspool of sin. At Gotham Airport, Talia hopped into a private car, Tina riding shotgun. Today, she's rocking a sleek black long-sleeve dress, a matching miniskirt, sheer black stockings, and killer heels. Her vibe is icy and mysterious, totally irresistible to some guys. Tina tagged along to Gotham, but being a high schooler, her outfit's way more casual, light blue jeans, a white tee, long black hair, and white sneakers, fresh and cute. The girl just pursed her lips, didn't say anything. Truth is, she'd been having a rough time lately. Before that jerk Keno threatened her, she was just a normal high school student in a small town. Even though she accidentally killed her mom, Tina still thought she was a pretty good kid. Then she met Keno, and everything went sideways. At first, she figured he wanted to exploit her abilities, turn her into some kind of super-powered woman to do his bidding. I mean, her power doesn't just change her looks, it can boost her strength and muscle mass, too. Basically, a textbook succubus body. But what did that bastard Keno do? He injected her with a nanobot bomb. After Gino shipped her off to Talia, Talia dumped her into the League of Assassins for training in killing and undercover work. Now, Tina's a halfway decent assassin. Just look at the girl's toned forearms, you can tell she's been putting in work. So, Tina, Talia said, turning her head, what do you think of Gino Luthor? Think about what? Tina frowned. Even though Talia took her in, Keno was still the one who sent her to spy. So, he was still the boss, and she wasn't too intimidated by Talia. Talia chuckled. If he asked you to be his girlfriend, would you say yes? Boyfriend? Tina sighed, remembering getting forcibly injected with nanobots that night. Her eyes filled with resentment, and her voice was bitter. I'd rather jump off a building. Falling for Gino? Tina pictured it, Gino, smiling like a devil, holding the needle, head over heels. Here's a nanobot shot to the neck. Break up with me, and your head goes boom. Seriously, who in their right mind falls for a monster? Only a psycho or a criminal. Talia smirked, thinking Tina had a point. While they were chatting, the car pulled up to Elliott Manor. Talia and Tina got out. An old guy with white hair stood waiting by the iron gates. Miss Talia? Miss Tina? The butler, who'd worked for Laurent forever, was surprisingly spry. He shuffled towards them, smiling. Mr. Gino's waiting in the lobby. Please, follow me. Ha, Talia scoffed. That guy was still trying to act all high and mighty. They followed the old butler into the manor and into the living room. A shock of blonde hair caught their eyes. Gino was standing in front of a wall covered in oil paintings, his blue eyes fixed on the top one, a realistic painting of 4 people crossing the ocean. My grandfather's ancestor founded Gotham with 3 other young guys back in the 19th century. Gino spoke with his back to them, and Talia and Tina learned the origin story of Gotham. After hearing Gino's words, Talia raised her eyebrows. She felt a little sympathy for the Court of Owls, but they actually provoked the evil star Gino. Gino rubbed his head and turned to face them. You two are all dolled up. He tossed out the compliment, which earned him a sneer from Talia and silence from Tina. Seeing their reactions, Gino just rolled his eyes. He knew they had a pretty low opinion of him, but he wasn't about to work on repairing it. Gino's face hardened, and he looked straight into Talia's green eyes. Where are the people you brought? Talia tapped her fingers, bored. They're in plain clothes, spread out all over Gotham. About 50 of them. I hid them all in the sewers. Gino nodded, not surprised. The assassin game sounds all mysterious and powerful, but to get the job done, the work environment is usually nasty. Like, medieval assassins would crawl through the castle's sewage pipes, climb out from the bottom, and then stab the king in the butt while he was on the throne, if you get my gist. Go lead the team, find the people on this list, and talk to them with the other members of the Court of Owls. Geno casually tossed Talia a sheet of paper covered with names. After years of scheming, the Court of Owls had people everywhere in Gotham: education, law, government, you name it. Got it. Talia pocketed the list. She knew the drill. She wasn't surprised that Geno could pull something like this off. She was about to leave when Geno stopped her. Oh, yeah. He snapped his fingers. Tell them I said hi. Talia just rolled her eyes. What a jerk. The sewer stench was overpowering. In the darkness, a group of silent warriors in black uniforms stood motionless. Each carried 2 samurai swords strapped to their backs, armor covered their vital areas, and ninja masks hid their faces, leaving only a pair of cold, emotionless eyes visible. These were the League of Assassins. Iron, blood, assassination. That's what they lived for, cold, emotionless blades. Shwa! A shaft of light appeared from above, and the warriors looked up. A metal ladder led up to an open manhole cover. Talia, also dressed as a ninja warrior, waved slightly to them. The assassins climbed silently and swiftly out of the underground passage and gathered in the dark alley, their eyes fixed on Talia. Warriors, Talia said, a sneer forming on her lips as she pulled out the note from Geno. Work in teams of 3. Each team hits 1 family. Get the list of every member of the Court of Owls. Understood. Talia licked her lips and drew a finger across her throat. Cut M off at the knees. Leave no survivors. Whoosh! The assassins didn't reply, but bowed their heads in unison, the clink of their armor a testament to their understanding of the mission. Let's go! At Talia's command, the assassins streamed into Gotham in groups of 3. Today was going to be a bloodbath. Chapter 86. The Assassins League is in action. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Familiar underground conference room. Unlike last night's splendor, the chandelier in the conference room was off, making the room dim. A masked man in a suit, a golden pin on his chest, paced anxiously. This isn't good, he said. It's been a day and a night, and the Talon hasn't returned. I'm afraid. He trailed off, confident his companion understood. Yeah. The gray-haired man in the chair sighed. Tell the others to relocate. The Court of Owls had survived this long through caution and fear. Now, the Talon's likely failure had them on edge. Right away. The standing man headed for the exit, lightly pressing the door lock. Kacha, star, the heavy blast door opened, and he stepped out. Then, a bloody head filled his vision. The disembodied head slammed into his face, the skull shattering the mask before impacting his head. Bang, star, the thud startled the seated man, who jumped up and looked toward the exit. He saw the most terrifying thing he'd ever witnessed. A large hand forced the 2 heads together, crushing them like a pig's head in a hydraulic press. Brain matter splattered against the wall. The headless corpse flew back, hitting the wall, twitching before falling limply to the floor. Hoo-hoo. The Court of Owls leader's heart raced with fear. He couldn't believe the power it took to crush a person's head. The metal door was shoved open, flying off its hinges like a cannonball and cracking the opposite wall. A mocking voice called out, "Headshot!" The arm disappeared into the darkness. Whoosh, star, the sound of clashing armor echoed as dozens of armed Assassin Alliance warriors filed in. They formed a silent circle around the conference room. Then, the owner of the arm slowly emerged from the shadows. He had long blonde hair and handsome features, and wore a black samurai uniform. The masked man stared at him as he sauntered in, smiling. Honestly, this place was a pain to find. I don't know what Gotham's original underground traffic planners were thinking. The sewage system is bigger and more complicated than the city itself. Geno stood at the entrance, hands behind his back. A brown-haired beauty with a sly grin stood beside him, watching the court's leader, the only outsider in the room. Well, the Court of Owls. Geno looked at the stunned man and glanced at an assassin, who immediately stepped forward and ripped off his mask, revealing a frightened old face. The old man looked pampered, his hands without calluses. You're Geno Luthor. The old man's voice was hoarse. He looked at the surrounding assassins, a hint of bitterness on his face. So the Assassin's Alliance is behind you. No wonder you challenged the Court of Owls. The League of Assassins is behind me? Geno laughed, glancing at Talia. Tell him the truth. Talia looked at the old man, expressionless. Mr. Geno is behind us. The assassins she brought were loyal to her, and she wasn't worried about them telling Ra's al Ghul. Besides, Talia hoped to use Geno's power to overthrow Ra's and become a dutiful daughter. You. The old man choked, a trace of madness appearing on his face. Knowing he was doomed, he said, so what if you kill me? If I'm gone, someone else will take my place. Oh, yeah. Geno's face flashed a hint of sarcasm. What was it Hydra said? Cut off one head, and 2 more shall take its place. He wasn't going to kill the old man just yet, so Geno snapped his fingers. 2 assassins walked in, carrying a sack, bang, star. The heavy sack was tossed onto the conference table. Geno pulled a samurai sword from an assassin's waist and said, without looking at the old man, open it. It'll explain why you're dying. A cold feeling washed over the old man. He trembled as he reached for the sack, knowing it held his death sentence. Wow. As the sack opened, the old man's eyes went wide, star. Before he could speak, a samurai sword pierced his heart, plop, star. The lifeless body fell to the floor, and an assassin stepped forward to search his clothes. Geno sat down and tossed the bloody blade aside. Talia glanced at the assassins and waved them off to search the stronghold. They left, leaving only Geno and Talia at the table. Ah! Talia chuckled, then quickly sat on Geno's lap. What's this? Geno asked without emotion, looking at Talia's warrior gear. The Court of Owls has to have some treasures, right? Talia wrapped her arms around Geno's neck. Since her last seduction attempt had failed, she'd been practicing with Tina, improving her technique. At least now she knew how to grind her but for some excitement. So, Geno knew she was ambitious and greedy. He wanted to know what she was after. So, can you show me what valuables the Court of Owls has? Talia knew the owls had something Geno wanted. I've helped you so much. Is it okay? Talia asked, sounding almost pitiful. Sure. Talia was surprised by Geno's immediate agreement. We're friends, aren't we? Geno smiled and gently hugged her waist. This wasn't out of kindness. He'd have a use for her in the future, so, he'd give her a little something for now. Chapter 87 A Plan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Geno shoved open the heavy, ancient stone door. Inside was a chamber-sized pool filled with a mysterious liquid, clear and colorless, shimmering with a Milky Way iridescence. What is this? Talia and her assassins all looked surprised. Amber gold. Geno eyed the pool, stepped forward, and scooped up some of the water. It flowed through his fingers, back into the pool, leaving no trace. What does it do? Talia asked, her eyes gleaming with excitement. It prolongs life, Geno said simply, describing its primary function, but it was more than that. Geno remembered that if this substance, combined with 4 other metals, were bestowed on the Destiny's Child, they could summon Barbados, the dragon. Of course, the dragon wouldn't grant you 3 wishes. It would turn people into twisted, insane dark creatures. Have some of your ninjas transport this, Geno instructed Talia. Seeing the woman's eagerness, he added coolly, you can have a small bucket. The rest is mine. Talia pursed her lips and waved her hand, signaling the assassins to find containers and start filling them with amber gold. She had no right to argue. Their strength wasn't on the same level. The 2 left the chamber and opened another stone door. A library. Geno looked at the impressive array of books with interest. This room, also the size of a living room, had bookshelves lining the walls, packed with countless volumes. Geno scanned them, his gaze pierced through the essence of each book. Most were just assassination records and meeting minutes from the Court of Owls. He walked toward the highest bookshelf. Geno took down a weighty tome from the top shelf. He blew off the thick layer of dust on the cover. Talia watched him leaf through the book and sneered, didn't know you were into reading. It's one of my simple pleasures. Geno said dryly and opened the book to page 85. Owl Talon assassinated Alan Wayne in 1922. Alan Wayne, from the Wayne family. Bruce's great-great-grandfather. Gino pinched his chin. The Court of Owls and the Wayne family had a long and complicated history. Flipping through the book, Gino quickly found more clues. Using the Alan Wayne Foundation to build 21 owls' nests in Gotham City. The Alan Wayne Trust Fund was designed to support young architects and promote the construction of high-rise buildings in Gotham City. Gino reviewed the summary inside. The Court of Owls really knew how to play the long game. For the past 150 years, they've been using the Wayne family's money to fund their own schemes, erecting almost 24 buildings in Gotham City. Let's go. This Court of Owls keeps surprising me. Gino dropped the book and left the room with Talia. Another stone door. They pushed it open. This room was filled with rows of neat red coffins. Talia followed Gino as they approached the coffins. She noticed that they were all open and empty. In the center of each coffin was a framed photo of a gaunt-looking child. They collect orphans from Gotham City and train them to be killers. When they're not needed, they sleep here. Gino rubbed his neck. It was a pity the Court of Owls had to throw all their claws at him. The two walked through the coffins. Interesting. Gino tilted his head, studying the maze ahead. It was huge, intricate, and made of marble. A giant owl statue stood at the entrance, its claws resting above a gurgling fountain. Looking at the layout, a smile spread across Gino's lips. Talia, gather your ninjas. The woman didn't understand what he was planning, but she didn't question it. She nodded and left. Gino looked at the fountain and the maze. He had a plan, an interesting plan for Bruce Wayne. What kind of surprise will you bring me this time? What kind of surprise will you bring me this time? Wayne Manor. Bruce wearily opened the door and walked into the Wayne Manor library. As the richest family in Gotham City, the Wayne family's library chronicled the life experiences of every Wayne. Bruce rubbed his tired eyes. Since witnessing Maroni's assassination by someone dressed as an owl, the horrific scene had triggered profound memories. He had suspected since childhood that his parents' deaths were no accident and had investigated the existence of the Court of Owls, but after becoming trapped in a room for over a week, nearly starving, he'd given up. Let's see what you're hiding. Bruce took the escalator to find the family records he needed. Unlike Gino, who could pinpoint what he wanted instantly, Bruce could only search slowly. Time passed. Snap. Bruce pulled a book off the shelf. The writing was impeccable. Alfred, the loyal and conscientious butler, undoubtedly kept this library spotless. Bruce turned the page and found the record of his great-great-grandfather, Alan Wayne. In his later years, Alan Wayne often suspected he was being watched by a secret assassin organization. He was diagnosed with obsessive-compulsive disorder and schizophrenia at Arkham Asylum. He died after breaking his neck and hitting his head when he jumped into Gotham's underground tunnels. Bruce silently read the lines. He used to think his great-great-grandfather had gone mad from stress. Now, he wondered if there really was a terrifying organization in Gotham City secretly controlling everything. Master. There was a knock on the door. Alfred entered. Hands clasped behind his back, the old man said calmly, "Mr. James Gordon from the Gotham City Police Department is here to see you. He says he has something important to discuss." The book in Bruce's hand trembled slightly. He thought of the files on James Gordon, an outsider, mistrusted by other officers. It was currently impossible to confirm if he was honest. "Let's go." Bruce closed the book and pushed it back into the bookcase. Alfred followed him. They reached the hall and found James Gordon sitting on the sofa, looking grave. "Thank you to reader 1455147717727412224 for your little coin reward. Thank you, boss." Chapter 88 Batman Solves the Case. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the lobby of the old castle, Gordon fidgeted on the leather sofa. Before joining the Gotham PD, he'd been just an American soldier, a grunt on some battlefield. His daily routine was simple: run, eat, do what he was told, sleep, or die. He'd never seen a hall so opulent, like something out of a king's legend. Yeah, Gordon felt a little out of his depth, but his unease wasn't just about feeling inferior. It was a gruesome mass murder that had gone down only 20 minutes ago. Over 40 of Gotham's richest, most influential people were found dead in an old building. The impact on Gotham was huge, and not in a good way, and it wasn't just those 40. Their families were found dead in their homes, too. Those left behind would be breathing down the police department's neck, and the politicians they bankrolled wouldn't let the GCPD off the hook. Before Gordon left, the whole damn station, from the commissioner to the stray mutts in the alley, had been ordered to find the killer, and fast, to give those fat cats some answers. The really messed up part. Their heads were separated from their bodies, and there was a note on the wall, a threat to kill Bruce Wayne. That's why he was here. Wayne Enterprises was a bedrock of Gotham. If Bruce Wayne, the sole heir, were to die, the city would be crippled. Wayne Enterprises would be thrown into chaos, ripe for hostile takeovers. For Gotham's sake, Gordon had to keep Bruce Wayne safe. Mr. Gordon. Gordon's thoughts were interrupted by a voice from the staircase. Bruce Wayne, the young billionaire, was walking down the stairs in a silk robe, his loyal old butler right behind him. Bruce looked half asleep, like he'd just rolled out of bed. He looked tired, and the lipstick smudges on his face screamed Playboy. "What's this about?" Bruce asked, head drooping. "Mr. Wayne." Gordon stood and shook the young man's hand. Then, he laid out the details of the massacre from 20 minutes ago. He read off the names of the dead, all big shots in Gotham. Bruce's face grew darker as he listened. "So, you think these psychos are going to bust into Wayne Manor and off me?" Bruce threw up his hands, his gloomy expression replaced by his usual cynicism. "Okay, Commissioner Gordon, what do you want me to do?" Gordon sighed. "I'm hoping Mr. Wayne can leave Gotham for a while." Bruce nodded, glancing at his butler, Alfred. "Sir, if I recall correctly, there's a helicopter on the roof. We can use it to go to one of your other estates and then catch a connecting flight out of Gotham." Bruce snapped his fingers with a smile. "Do it." "Excuse me, Mr. Gordon." Bruce turned and nodded to Gordon, then hurried toward the roof with the butler, like he was terrified of death. Watching Bruce leave, Gordon walked out of the manor, got into his beat-up car, and headed toward the crime scene. He had a lot to do. Boom. Soon after Gordon left, the sound of a helicopter filled the air. Inside the helicopter, Alfred piloted the chopper, gaining altitude while shouting back, "I hope you protect yourself this time, Master Bruce. Try not to get any more scars." "Got it, Alfred." "I got it." Behind him, Bruce was putting on protective gear. Click. With the black shoulder pads locked in place, Bruce stared at the bat mask and took a deep breath. Alfred fiddled with a receiver while relaying information to Bruce. According to the latest police report, the murders took place at the old Wayne Group facility. Bruce flinched. He thought of the masked figure from that night. Could it be that same guy? He took another deep breath, pushing away the worry. Bruce looked down at the city below, the city he both loved and hated. Gotham. Bruce heard himself say the word, and then he picked up the bat mask and slipped it over his head. With half of the mask covering his face, his melancholy eyes turned cold and sharp. At that moment, he was Batman. Gripping the sides of the cabin, he pushed off with his legs. Letting go of his hands, he launched out of the chopper like a cannonball, diving toward Gotham under the cover of night. In the red twilight, Bruce opened his cape, the fabric snapping in the air, like a giant bat falling from the sky. He was about to bring fear to the city. The old Wayne Group facility, the abandoned high-rise, was surrounded by orange warning tape. Gordon stood there with a cigarette in his mouth, staring into the night. He replayed the gruesome scene he'd witnessed. The headless bodies were neatly arranged in the vast office building, and the severed heads, frozen in expressions of terror, were placed on the dusty conference table. Whoever did this is a maniac. Gordon inhaled deeply, letting the nicotine-laced smoke fill his lungs. He flicked the cigarette to the ground and stomped it out. Since arriving in Gotham, he'd learned just how twisted, depraved, and insane this city could be. Click. A faint noise came from the high-rise nearby. The two cops he'd assigned to guard the scene were already asleep. If Gordon hadn't held on to the instincts he'd learned in the army, he probably would have missed it. What was that? Gordon tightened his grip on the gun at his waist, slowly moved his legs, bent low, and stepped over the police tape, moving toward the high-rise. In the dark, Gordon listened to his own breathing as he climbed the stairs to the 4th floor, the scene of the crime. The stench of blood slammed into his nostrils. He looked into the room, body bags littered the floor, a dim light flickered in the darkness. "Who's there?" Gordon stiffened, raising his gun. In this twisted murder scene, only a firearm could offer any comfort. "Easy." A low, raspy voice answered. Gordon watched as the light rose, revealing the familiar, pointed bat ears. "It's you, the masked freak," Gordon said coldly, his grip on the gun tightening. "Did you do this?" "No. I'm here to help you." The figure shrouded in darkness spoke slowly. He turned to face the wall, as if he didn't care if Gordon was about to shoot him. Chapter 89 Batman Solves the Case 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. "I don't believe you." Gordon scoffed. Some costumed weirdo shows up at the old Wayne Tower site at night claiming to help the cops with a case. Gordon thought he had every right to be skeptical. "No, just take a good whiff." The figure was cloaked in shadows, its body hidden like a bat sleeping under its wings. Gordon sniffed the air, then frowned slightly. There was a faint, odd smell. If he had to describe it, it was like paint, or maybe a paint thinner. Gordon shrugged. "That doesn't prove anything. Maybe the killer knocked over a can of paint." Gordon continued, "Besides, handling cases is our job. I don't care who you are." Before he could finish, Batman interrupted, holding out a hand towards Gordon. "Is there a fire? What do you think you're doing?" Gordon tightened his grip on his gun, thinking this guy might be planning to torch the crime scene. Seeing Gordon's suspicion, Batman quietly retracted his hand. He'd planned to ask Gordon for a small favor to lower his guard. He'd forgotten that his presence and actions probably looked like a crime in progress. Batman turned and pointed his chin at the wall. "Look at that wall. Notice anything?" Gordon frowned, using his free hand to push up his glasses, trying to see in the dim light. He scanned the grimy wall, his eyes catching on some light brown marks, and his heart skipped a beat. "You're saying this is a clue the killer left for us?" "I suspect so. The pungent smell in the air is coming from the walls. I recognize it. It's a message left with a special kind of linseed oil." "Who leaves messages at a crime scene?" Gordon was shocked and angry. What did the killer think this was? A game? "Lighter." Batman's voice was low, and Gordon instinctively tossed him his lighter. Realizing what he'd done, he saw Batman flick the switch, the flame edging closer to the brown marks. "Wait a minute," Gordon panicked. That was important evidence, something that could help the police, but the orange-red flame touched the brown traces. The next moment, boom, the weak flame exploded, clinging to the marks on the wall. Like fiery dragons, they instantly ignited the entire wall. The grand, hot, orange-red flame danced in the night. Gordon stared at the large English letters, reading aloud, "Let's play a game, Batman." He looked at the weirdo in tights and saw an odd glint in the man's eyes, the slight upturn of his lips hinting that this freak was actually enjoying himself. "We're doomed." Gordon thought to himself, this guy's a psycho. Shouldn't a normal person be terrified in this situation? Why was this guy happy? Batman turned to Gordon. "Have you seen the body? I think I have some leads." Gordon looked at the mysterious figure, sensing a dark and terrifying, yet oddly reassuring, presence. Something was definitely off. "Okay, come with me." Gordon led Batman to a body bag. The strong smell of blood from the headless corpse made Gordon grimace. Batman stared at the body, then stated, "Death by decapitation with a blade." The cut was clean, no secondary wounds. The killer was experienced and well-trained. Batman's white lenses narrowed slightly. The method reminded him of things he'd seen in the past. The mysterious man followed Gordon as he opened 3 or 4 more bags. "Confirmed," Batman said after a moment. Gordon looked confused. What was confirmed? Catching Gordon's gaze, Batman explained, the killer was an assassin from an organization called the League of Assassins. As the world's greatest detective, Batman had extraordinary intellect and a photographic memory and possessed a sharp sense of judgment. during his time in the League of Assassins, he went on some missions with the team. Although he never killed anyone, he had witnessed the tragic deaths of his companions, consistent with these corpses. The League of Assassins? Gordon looked blank. He shot Batman a look, wondering if the guy was losing it again. Batman wandered around the room again. Certain the League of Assassins were behind the murders, his gaze shifted upward. Batman looked up at the ceiling. Soon, with the help of the moonlight, he spotted a series of dark footprints above his head. Gordon watched Batman pull a strange-looking pistol from his belt, asking, "Wait, you think there are clues up there?" Batman didn't answer. He aimed his grappling gun at the ceiling. Bang! The heavy anchor at the end of the hook whizzed towards the ceiling, but it seemed the distance was too far, or the angle was off. The hook didn't loop around the concrete beam, falling awkwardly to the floor. Clang! The anchor hit the concrete. Gordon and Batman exchanged glances, then fell into a brief silence. The first launch failed. Batman tightened his grip on the grappling gun and pressed a button on the side. SHWW. Like a homing snake, the lock rope dragged the anchor back to the muzzle. All right. Batman took a breath, raised his hook gun, aimed at the beam, and pulled the trigger. This time, it worked. The cable looped around the cement pillar and secured tightly. Batman tugged on the hook to make sure it wouldn't slip, then pressed the trigger again. The hook gun launched him, flying through the air. His huge bat cape billowed. Batman landed gracefully on the rafters. He sniffed at the black footprints. A foul smell hit his nose. Batman's eyes narrowed. He didn't need to guess where the footprints came from. In Gotham City, the only place with such a stench was the sewers. Batman rolled and landed on the ground, his hand behind his back. But why would they come to Gotham City? That he couldn't think of anything that would interest Ra's al Ghul in this city. Chapter 90 Batman's Trial. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Batman moved toward the window, as silent as he'd been when he arrived. Hold on, what did you find? Gordon demanded, blocking Batman's path. Determination blazed in his eyes behind his glasses. Batman rasped, "This is none of your business." Having trained with the League of Assassins, Batman knew firsthand how dangerous they were. Bringing Gordon into this would be like signing the police officer's death warrant. They hadn't known each other long, but Batman recognized Gordon as a good cop. "You don't need to know," Batman repeated, trying to shut him down. Gordon pushed up his glasses, his jaw set. "No, I need to know," that he was practically vibrating with intensity. "I'm a cop in this city, its guardian. I have a right to the truth, and to get justice for these victims." That they locked eyes, a silent standoff. In a cheesy movie, this would be the start of a beautiful partnership between a masked hero and a stubborn, by-the-book officer. Unfortunately, reality bites. Batman hesitated, then sighed. "Fine. You really want to know? I'll tell you." Suddenly, Batman pointed behind Gordon. "What's that? What is it?" Gordon spun around, finding only darkness. When he turned back, the dark figure was gone, vanished like smoke. Only the open window proved he'd even been there. Son of a... Gordon slammed his hands against the wall in frustration. He'd been played by that creepy, caped freak. Gotham sewers, clang, clang, star, the mighty Batman, reduced to a sewer worker, scaled down an iron ladder. Hand over hand, he pulled a light rod from his belt, cutting through the gloom, and stepped into the reeking underground passage. His cape dragged through sewage, and his armored pants were getting splattered. Ignoring the stench, Batman focused. Cities have always been breeding grounds for superstition. People flocked to them from all corners of the earth, abandoning the familiar comfort of small towns for a sprawling maze of steel and glass. They cling to old beliefs and prejudices. Asians will hang talismans to ward off evil, and some black communities still practice ancient African rituals using animal remains. Reaching a four-way intersection, Batman examined the granite walls. The League of Assassins had emerged from these sewers, but a Gotham nursery rhyme kept echoing in his head. "The Court of Owls is watching you. Be on guard all day and all night. Lime brick and granite stone, watch out for them in your home." Clues to the Court of Owls. Batman narrowed his eyes. He suspected a connection between the Court of Owls and the League of Assassins. If so, things were about to get really ugly. He'd be facing two major threats, and he'd have to do everything he could to drive them out of Gotham and save his city from their clutches. He tapped the granite, testing the walls, thunk thunk, star, luck. Maybe, the hollow sound made Batman's fists clench. The wall was empty, something was hidden inside, bam, star. Batman punched the granite, sending shards flying. A small hole appeared. He punched again, widening it until he could squeeze through, crunch, star. That he stepped into the opening, his boots grinding on loose gravel, the light rod flickered and died. He tossed it aside and walked deeper into the darkness. For some reason, he felt more at home in the shadows than in the light. Beyond the narrow tunnel, a vast underground labyrinth stretched before him, static hiss. Star. An enormous LCD screen flickered above. Through the snow, a lavish, golden conference room came into focus. Batman scowled. Doubt etched his face. The scene was only visible on the screen. A figure in a pure white mask sat at the head of a massive table. He sat like an emperor on his throne. Ra's al Ghul? No. Batman had faced the League of Assassins before. He knew Ra's. The League's leader was a cold, venomous snake, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The masked man exuded none of that. He rested an arm on the chair, legs slightly apart, leaning back with a relaxed air that suggested effortless power. Batman looked up at the figure. The man rose slowly, his height creating an aura of intimidating presence. He reminded Bruce of an ink painting he'd seen during his travels in the East, depicting the legendary Xiang Yu, a warlord said to have defeated thousands single-handedly. Behind the masked man stood a line of League of Assassins members. They were clad in uniform black, armed to the teeth. Cold eyes glinted behind their masks, ready to kill. Batman's mind raced. What was the connection between this man and the League? What were they planning? As Batman pondered, the man approached the camera. He clasped his hands behind his back and looked down at Batman, like a god surveying a mortal. His deep voice boomed from the screen. I want to play a game, a little game. This is a recording. I'll be waiting for you at the end. He gestured to the assassins. These are the League's best. They'll be released into the maze in 10 seconds to hunt you down. Escape them, and I might just tell you the truth about Gotham. The words hit Bruce hard. The truth about Gotham. He looked at the maze again. Even Batman, hardened by years of war, felt a chill. What did this guy think he was? A puppet to be toyed with? Then, let the game begin. The masked man snapped his fingers. The screen went black, plunging the underground maze back into darkness. Then came the sound of running feet and the scraping of armor, echoing from every direction. Batman knew he had to move.